met somewhere and then walked down. Email access. So a lot of it is I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I have a much like care about. I just know how I feel, and that's
Nobody becomes evil, but carrying out vengeance to become evil. There is a great difference. We all wish all kinds of reactions come when a tragedy occurs. Right?
Just want to let people know there's a literature table over here. I guess it's on the east side, and there's a bunch of materials there. People should take flyers. There's about 1,000 flyers there for the September 29th march that's happening next Saturday. Texas March Against War and Racism. There's a whole stack of those flyers there. People should feel free to take those flyers and plaster Austin with those, and pick up any other information that's on that table, and make photocopies and give them to your friends, and put it on your office door, and put it in your neighbor's mailbox, and take it all.
We are Austin Against War. Before I say anything else, we need to make sure people don't march on the Capitol itself. Stay on the main road. We are Austin Against War, and we are joined under 3 broad points of unity: to oppose war, to defend against racist attacks, and to protect civil liberties. Okay, we need to stay on the big sidewalk next to the building and not be on the street. We're going to have a series of speakers and some local musicians. Our first speaker is Professor Robert Fernia, Professor Emeritus of the Anthropology Department at UT, and he'll be speaking now.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to speak here today because I feel very strongly about what is going on. And what I feel most strongly about is that no more innocent people should be killed and have already suffered a grievous attack on our country that occurred last Tuesday. I have enormous grief for what happened to them, but that grief would be multiplied if the United States undertakes revenge that involves the death of other innocent people. I'm wearing today a costume, the clothes worn in Afghanistan that were given to me when I lived there in 1967. I spent the '67 war in Afghanistan. The people there are poor, farmers, nomads. They support themselves by raising crops and feeding their own families, herding goats and sheep. They've worked at this for many, many years. Some people have called Afghanistan the Switzerland of the Middle East, and perhaps that's right from a physical aspect. But the truth be known, they are 100 times poorer than Switzerland. It is important that we also not bring upon people living in the United States of Middle Eastern or Afghan origin grief for reasons for which they have no responsibility. The idea that people who are of brown color, who wear Middle Eastern clothing, who speak Middle Eastern languages, who are Muslim, that any of these people should be attacked by other fellow citizens is disgusting, absolutely disgusting to me. I lived during the Second World War, and I was 10 years old when Pearl Harbor was bombed. I lived near Portland, Oregon, and I watched Japanese citizens of the United States being rounded up with guards and guns and taken off to live in internment camps during the Second World War. This is one of the most grievous injustices the American government has ever committed. Let's not let something like this happen again. Whether it's profiling, whether it's attempting to indoctrinate or subvert Middle Eastern groups in this country, whatever it is, they should be treated like other citizens, and no presumption of guilt should be made without proof that they are in fact guilty. I think the best that we can do is to step forward and denounce attacks upon fellow citizens, to make it clear to those who might want to do this that it is unpopular, that we as a community do not support and will not countenance such behavior.
Time to start infiltrating Gallup and Roper and all the other polling companies. Let me just close with one thought. It's very nice to see so many of you here, but we need to see a lot more. Remember this, keep this in mind. You, me, all of us who are out in various places across the country. We represent the hope of the world right now. It's riding on our shoulders. Don't just come out to one protest and say, okay, I've done my part, I oppose war. If you're not working for this, every minute that you have, every spare second, you are not carrying your responsibility as the hope of the world. Thank you. Yeah, one announcement. If they start bombing or if they declare war on any country, there's a standing order, emergency demo right here at 5:30. Keep the TV on. Be ready to come down here. All right, thank you.
Coming Tuesday at 5:30, there will be a march against one-sided media.
First of all, I would like to thank these three individuals for being here. Because we have, there's obviously no reason why we can't get along. And as a matter of fact, if it was just up to the common citizens of the world, we would. You know, this is a collision of the short-term economic interest of one set of elites against other sets of elites. What we're always given in this situation is an accomplished fact of some disaster. So, okay, Pearl Harbor. But nobody wants to talk about what led up to Pearl Harbor. Why was the Navy in Hawaii? What happened to the people of Hawaii? What happened to the Queen of Hawaii? What happened to all those folks? What happened in the Philippines in the 1880s? The killing of hundreds of thousands of Filipinos by the United States. The attempt to take over the entire Pacific until we had a clash of elites. We had a clash of elites of the United States, a clash of elites in Japan. And so there was a war. And so everyone wakes up one morning and says, oh, well, Pearl Harbor has been bombed. Well, you know, even the elites in Japan didn't wake up one morning and decide to bomb there. No, this is like 20 years worth of working up to that. And this is always the story. We're given what's called a fait accompli, an accomplished fact. And we're saying, look, you have to go out and die for our profit. It's your patriotic duty. You know, that's what they always tell us. You know, I was a simple-minded, nice kind of know-nothing high school student in Corpus Christi, Texas, when I got my draft notice. And I went to Vietnam. And you know, it was so darn horrible that when I got back to the United States, I went to the library and looked up every citation in the index of periodical literature, back when there was no computers, on Indochina, Vietnam, the whole thing. And you know, I got a pitiful stack of citations. If you put them on note cards, they would probably be less than a half an inch tall. In other words, from reading the above ground media, you couldn't have known enough about the conflict or the history of it to make any kind of an informed decision about it. And it's the same thing with the Middle East. You know, all we're given is innuendo, we're giving stereotypes, and we're given all this stuff. But the fact is, and I'll pull this out of my hat, here we have Rabbi Eric Asherman. Rabbi Eric Asherman is shaking hands with a Palestinian in Hebron. And you can read all about it in the Texas Observer. It's in the latest issue. Now, Rabbi Eric Asherman represents Rabbis for Human Rights in Jerusalem. He went to Hebron, shaking hands with Atta Jaber, who's a farmer, raises grapes and olives. They're both really nice guys. They get along just fine, no problem. And that is the overwhelming truth. Now, if other people want to force us into war by telling us a lot of nonsense, well, they have the media to do it with. They can just beat us up with CNN and NBC and all that stuff, and we can have nice right-wing, one newspaper towns where you can't get a word in edgewise, and that's the way it is. But so it's up to us. Enough gloom and doom. Okay, it's up to us. And the one thing that we've got to do is what we're doing here. But then you've got to make a commitment. You have to, if I was an evangelical preacher, I'd say, come to peace. And you got to say, all right, from now on, I'm going to be peaceful. There's no room in this stuff for provocateurs and people that would give us a bad name, and they're out there. And we've got to have ways to deal with that when it comes along. But as far as we're concerned, we're for peace, we're for nonviolence, and we're for information. Information. When you've got an accomplished fact and you've got your fait accompli, that means you have no context, no history, no reasoning for anything that's happened. They say, look at this and don't look over there, and go this way and don't look at any other paths, and everything will be just fine. So it's up to us. When I got back from Vietnam, and after I went to the library, and after I looked up the Index of Periodical Literature, and I found out that I couldn't know anything, then I had to inform myself. And what I found out was, you've got to read those darned history books. You just got to. And now, if you want to take the easy way out, look up commondreams.org on the web, www.commondream, and they've got tons of good information. And there's lots of other good websites. And I've got some in my little bag, but I won't pull them out now. You've got magazines being put out by Palestinian and Israeli youth. I'll pull that out. I think it's really important to take a moment, because people all over the world are trying to do something. This is called Crossing Borders, and they have a website which is just crossingborder.org on the web. This is Palestinian, Israeli, Jordanian, and Egyptian youth put out this magazine together. We never hear about stuff like this. Our media never tells us about the dozens of peace groups in Israel and in Palestine, and the coalition groups like Women in Black, Jewish Mothers for Peace. If you look up peace and on the web, you'll find all of these groups. They exist, and they're trying really, really hard to be heard, but not in the regular media. No, they'll show you a quick shot on an endless loop of a few Palestinians being happy because the trade towers were hit. But what they won't show you is pictures of Palestinian and Jewish women in Jerusalem together at candlelight vigils. They don't show you that because it doesn't pump up the war effort.
Alden, a representative of some of the protesters on campus, and he's going to let us know what's been going on there.
Yes, students! How's it going, y'all? I just want to say this is amazing. I don't know how many of us were out here last Friday, but I think the numbers look like there were 300. All I know is this is a hell of a lot more, and this is awesome. And it's just going to keep growing. I'm just here. I guess I've been designated the student voice, and we have already registered a organization on the UT campus. It's called the Campus Coalition for Peace and Justice. And what we're doing is we're reaching out our arms to just any student organizations, any people on campus. It doesn't even matter if it's UT campus. If you're at any university, we're looking for networks. We're looking to get on other campuses as well. So just come and talk to somebody that's holding up a Campus Coalition for Peace and Justice sign afterwards. I'll go ahead and just let you know about the events that have already been planned. Tomorrow, and this would be really cool, or I think this is going to be really cool, and it would be awesome if we got a lot of people out there, because it's an open air performance area, and it'd look really, really good if we just flooded it. It's by a club called Dance United. It's a piece being done out of the College of Fine Arts at UT. It's on the West Mall tomorrow at 12:30, and past that, any of you students that are on the UT campus, or any other students, we're having a meeting on Tuesday night, this next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. in the Hog.
Start the march.
Thank you. I'm glad to see everybody out here exercising one of the remaining freedoms that we have. We've got to guard that vigilantly, and that's the right to assemble and to dissent. Those who forget their history will repeat their mistakes. Let us not forget in 1920 to stand in opposition to a developing foreign policy as you are today would be an act of sedition, jailable. It is not today, and we have to fight to maintain that freedom because it is at risk. The administration speaks of war abroad, but they've begun a war domestically already. And in times of war, the first three victims are truth, the constitutional protections we cherish, and the rights of vulnerable population, especially the rights of immigrants. It has begun. The war has begun. We denounce John Ashcroft for hypocrisy and opportunism. The Attorney General of the United States immediately responded to the crisis in New York and Washington, D.C. by saying that liberty has been the victim. Liberty has been attacked, and we will maintain that heritage as we develop a response. Well, 2 days ago, he made a statement and is introducing legislation that will expand law enforcement capability well beyond constitutional bounds, victimizing the constitutional liberties to express yourselves through communication. He wants to expand wiretap. He wants to expand the ability of police agents to go into your internet without any judicial involvement, without any judicial approval or analysis. His principal attack has been on immigrants, vulnerable communities. He has suggested, like after the bombing in Oklahoma, that immigrants who face deportation can be subject to the use of secret evidence. The Supreme Court recently struck down that law. That was a law created in haste in response to the Oklahoma City bombing. The Supreme Court struck down that law, but this time he's back, suggesting no secret evidence necessary. We want no evidence at all. He is proposing that immigrants who are in this country, regardless of their documentation, if they are not citizens, can be subjected to deportation proceedings without the involvement of judicial bodies upon the INS and the Department of Justice suspicion of terrorism or involvement in terrorist activity. That's frightening. We can't let that stand. This is going to be a time of trouble. We've only seen the beginning of it. If there is going to be, Congress recently passed a resolution allowing the president to engage troops in foreign lands without specifying when, where, how many, and why. That's unconstitutional. It does not apply. Don't pay no attention to the hype. Politicians, as is traditional, are standing up and posturing behind this because to be more patriotic than the next door neighbor is what you need to do to succeed in elected office. But that's an unconstitutional act. It does not hold up against the War Powers Act. But we are going to have to be vigilant and to watch how the debates play out. Nothing is being considered yet. Tonight at 9 o'clock, I understand that George Bush is going to make a speech
that's going to address what his posture is going to be in the following weeks. The legislation that Ashcroft and the administration has proposed will not be considered until next week, probably 8 o'clock here in Texas. It is important that you gather and march and protect your rights to gather and dissent. But it's also important that you don't walk away today and forget what's at stake, because it's not over, it's just beginning. I'm told that the march to the Capitol will now begin. If you'll gather behind the banner that'll be behind me, the gates will open and proceed. Again, thank you everybody for coming, and thank you so much for the organizers. There's going to be announcements.